Previously on the Girls Ask Guys show.
Out of nowhere, I just became so cranky, and I was like, just don't touch me, don't talk to me, don't look at me, like I don't want any of this. And I couldn't articulate it, and Miguel like forced me to stop, and he's like, what's wrong? Like, talk to me. And I looked at him and I was like, I don't even know. I was like, I can't even communicate what's wrong with me. I was like, I don't. I was like, I have no idea what's wrong. And he was like, okay, well, what do you need? Because he knows for me as a type 2, I'm super giving and I never take care of myself. And he's like, this is a sign of Lauren not taking care of herself today. And he was right.
In this fourth and final episode with Lauren, we talk a little bit about the show and the impact that it's having before diving into the different types of struggles people have in being ready for a relationship. Now, before we start, on behalf of Ashley and I, we want to thank Lauren for being generous with her time, sharing her story, and leaving us with information that we can use to better our own relationships. So with that, let's finish our conversation with Lauren on this extended fourth part, where she talks a little bit about the struggles and being ready for a relationship. And don't forget, you can find Lauren on Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook at and Coffee Blog. But I have a lady down the street, Janice. Hey, Janice, I met you on the show, but she's actually mad because the next show doesn't come out until Tuesday. And she's like, I have nothing to listen to.
That's
so
amazing. That's so cute.
Here's the website, and here's all these articles that I wrote.
That's amazing. People are actually really digging the show. Since we launched like a couple days ago, me and John have pretty much been obsessed, like slowly watching. And I've been on a couple podcasts. I had a podcast before, and I gotta tell you, this is one of the most successful shows that I've seen in a long time, as far as listening, subscribing, or just downloads in general. I mean, usually it takes your first month, you're getting 15 downloads. Nobody knows where the fuck to find you, and we're greatly surpassing that. And
we're almost at 100.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's
and
awesome,
like, right? And it's only been a couple days, so I mean,
that's super great.
And Tim Page is actually doing our intro, so we're gonna have a new intro and outro coming up.
It's gonna be awesome.
That's awesome.
Season 2 is gonna be
when
really
I was I had a interview with him yesterday, or Liam, one of his assistants. I was talking with him, and he's never heard out of the hundreds of shows that they have done, they have never heard of a show like ours.
That's awesome.
This is a really good show. I mean,
yeah. Well, and I will say too, I love that's the concept of like, I was listening to the intro earlier today, and John, you're talking about what makes the show different, and you're like, it's you guys, like the listener, like you're what's going to make this different, because you're not answering questions that no one's asking. And I was like, it's such a simple concept, but it's like,
we're talking about stuff that everybody wants to talk about, but nobody's talking about.
Yep.
It's the Snuggie
It's a Snuggie podcast.
It's so
I love that.
And it's like, you just put arms on a blanket. Who the fuck would have thought about it? But then it's like, this is awesome. You know, like, or like the paperclip, or it's so simple. And that's part of it. Is it's we have questions. I mean, we pull questions before the show, and it writes itself, because we're just being honest. We're not, saying, well, if you, according to Freud's theory, and we're not doing all that literacy bullshit, because people get bored by it. If you want to go to school, enroll in a fucking class. But if you want real life, practical application stuff, just hit that subscribe button.
Yeah. I love you, Ashley. You're freaking awesome.
I am, right? That's what I'm trying to tell people.
No, like, you really are.
Thank you.
And we could not be more different. I mean, we really can't. I mean, because I came up in the military. I come from a military background. I'm very proper and everything else, where I have tailor-made clothes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm like a bum.
And she's like totally opposite.
Straight up, by choice too. And it's funny because we kind of come from the same backgrounds. Like, I did ROTC in high school. Thank you. And in college for a year. Then I dropped out. But I'm just like, I'm so carefree. Like, John's so very like, if it wasn't for John, none
rigid
of this shit
and detailed.
Honestly, John is like the fucking science behind this. And if it wasn't for him, none of this stuff would happen. But that carefree nature I have makes the show cohesive and not as rigid, and it's a really fun dynamic to have, because you never know what could possibly set off a fight between the two of us, but there is no fighting, because we're both smart enough to realize that at the end of the day, we're trying to produce a good show.
Yeah. We're trying to help people get through whatever they're trying to get through.
Yeah.
One thing what you said is so brilliant just now, Ashley, when it comes to just relationships in general, like not just romantic relationships, but familial relationships, friend relationships, and even relationships with children is like if you're a babysitter, a nanny, or if you have kids, if you're a cousin, like aunt, uncle, it doesn't matter. Is you always have to realize like everyone's human. It doesn't matter what could set anything off or some conflict happens or whatever. It's like you have to be bigger than the problem itself. And like I was talking to a friend of mine the other day because someone was making comments about her kid who's like 3 months old and was like, oh, they're such a bad baby. And I was like, he's 3 months. Like he's barely 12 pounds. Like he can't process emotions fully. At least not like articulate them. You know what I mean? Like he's 3 months. He can't even say dada yet. Like how can you expect him to act in such a way that you deem appropriate when you're a full grown bodied able person? Like that doesn't make sense. And that translates to relationships. Like how can you, if you're not
your white
contributing
knight
or giving yourself
human.
your best or whatever, how can you expect the other person to do that as well when you're in the beginning stages, I would say. And like, and then as you go on, if you have to recognize that, and this is where I think where people talk about sacrifice in relationships, because that's one thing I've heard a lot lately is everyone's like, oh, I don't want to sacrifice, or like sacrificing sounds like, I'm giving up or blah, 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 blah,
God
blah.
forbid you make a sacrifice. What the hell kind of mentality is that?
I think, and like, ironically enough, like I'm hearing a lot of that from like my more church going friends. And I think a lot of it comes one, just from like, they're not reading properly. Like they're not translating things.
Yeah.
But it's like, you don't have to give up things you like just because the other person doesn't enjoy them. You don't have to change who you are. Sometimes it happens naturally, but it happens with friends and stuff. But sometimes it's just recognizing that, you know what, they might need more of you than you need of them right now. And like, and that's okay.
If you feel like someone's trying to, when you enter into a relationship and there's all these stipulations like, oh, I'll date you, but you can't do this anymore. You can't do this anymore. You can't talk to that person.
That's a toxic relationship.
Yeah, you don't really want to get into that because like they don't like you. And I said that in the last show. I dated someone. I realized they didn't like me as a person. And like, we were compatible, but Jesus Christ, you hate me. Like, at the core of who I am as Ashley, you don't like the anarchist weirdo who like goes down rabbit holes for 24
then, like,
hours.
What's the point of even like having any sort of a relationship? Because if you don't like me for me, then why are we even wasting our time? Because I could be doing other things with my life, not even dating other men or whatever. I could be doing other things with my time than worrying about what you're doing.
Yeah. And I think, well, to myself, being from a different generation and looking at what is happening in general with the current generation, it's this entitlement mentality. I deserve it because I breathe air. So you need to provide what I need, and I'm not going to be what you really return that to.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. Like I'm willing to be me 100%. You have to accept that. And I'm not coming down on that, which is cool in principle. But if you want to make it work with somebody, there's some shit you have, like I'm messy as fuck. But if I want to live with someone, you know what I got to do? Sometimes I got to throw some dishes, and throw them away because that's usually what I do. I just throw them away. I don't even wash them. But
that's so funny.
You got to just
you got to do things you hate doing sometimes because it's just it's the monotonous of life. Like it doesn't like you could be the richest person in the entire world, but like at some point. Yeah. Well, and it's like at some point you're going to have to take a plate to the kitchen. You might not have to wash it.
God
but it's
forbid.
Like, at some point, like you're going to have to do some semblance of a chore. Yeah. And like, it might suck, but like it's life. Like it's going to happen. And
that's one of my biggest
move on, I guess. Like, that's the only advice I have about it.
Yeah. It's like, you're participating equally.
I mean, God forbid, like.
Yes.
Because one person shouldn't be stuck doing the dishes 100% of the time.
No, if it's agreed upon beforehand, that's fine.
Now, if they want to, that's what they want to do, and they're like, "Get the hell out of the kitchen!" Hey, it's yours.
That's actually kind of, we have that somewhat in standing for us. Is I hate taking out the garbage with every fiber of my being. I don't know why I hate doing it, but I hate doing it.
It's a man's job. That's why.
I'll be completely honest. I'm lazy, and when I'm home, I don't want to leave. And I live in an apartment complex. So I have to supposed to leave to do my laundry. I'm supposed to leave to take out their garbage, right? So for laundry, we just go to my in-laws' house because they have free water. And then we just double up. We're like, oh, we're going to come do laundry and have dinner. It works. Right. They don't care. We bring our own soap and stuff. We just use their machines. But the general consensus is like, I'll do the dishes every day from the day. And then you take out the garbage every day.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's just what happens to work. But like this last weekend, he didn't work at all because he has weekends off. And I worked all weekend. And so he did all the dishes because we did a lot of cooking. And so he was like, I'll clean up because I'm the one who did it. So it's fine. But to your point about it's like the equal thing. Something I was told when I was like 14 and I loved it is you're not like when you're in a relationship, it's not 50-50, it's 100-100.
Yeah.
And you're not alone in anything, but you're all like one person. And you have to recognize it. If you have the mentality that you're alone and not all one person to be with someone else, then you're never going to be happy in a relationship. It made more sense with his little thing because he had stuff that went along with that. But the whole all one thing really resonated with me in the sense of I had to be all one person. Yeah. And that doesn't mean I have to be, but here's what you talked about. You don't have to be complete. So if you're struggling, if you can be struggling with something very serious that we haven't talked about, you'd be struggling with like a very legitimate diagnosed PTSD situation. You have some serious trauma, you have some serious medical concerns. You might have a disability that none of us have experienced. Anything really severe. You don't have to be complete and healed from those situations. You don't have to feel healed from the medical diagnosis or even like feel quote unquote healed from any long-term things where you feel like you're a better person or all the stuff that they project on the TV and media. You don't have to be that way all the time. You have to recognize that you're all one person and you can grow and develop from that. And it's like until people recognize that portion, they're not ready to be in a relationship. Because I used to mistake it as I need to be like completely ready and like have all these issues in my life worked out before I'd ever like get into a relationship. And then walks in Miguel when I'm still like super butthurt and scared and all this other stuff. And he takes me for who I am as I am.
I hear that so much from the people that I've coached. And it's like, go talk to them. But I'm not ready because I don't have the right clothes. I don't have the right job. I don't have the right house. Don't have the right car. It's
such superficial idiocy.
Yes.
Because if you like, this isn't even coming, because I know some people might hear that be like, oh, it's because she goes to church. No, it's not even from anything like that. If you honestly think that if you don't look a certain way, that they're not going to like you, one, you're wrong because you're valuing the wrong things. Two, if that's actually true, run for the freaking hills because you don't want to be with that person. Yeah. They need to take you who you are as you are. Warts and all. Like, because that's who you are as a person.
Not warts, just regular warts.
Yeah.
Well, I mean genital warts too, I guess. Technically.
Because it's like, whatever issues and quote unquote warts and ugliness you might have on now, like, yes, you could grow from that, but you might have more down the road because you don't know what you're going to encounter. You're never going to be perfect. You're never going to be ready. You're never going to be any of these things. So you really just have to put yourself out there, but make sure you're putting yourself out there in the right way. Well, and I think go ahead.
Well, it's kind of like when you were with Miguel in the car and he was looking at you and you didn't feel beautiful at the time, but he saw past all of that and saw you for you.
Yes. Yeah, he did. He sees. Yeah. And like one thing that I've shared about with some close friends and stuff, Miguel and I even talked about recently was, everyone likes to talk about how they have a type, right? And like I'm attracted to this, I'm attracted to that. And that's fine. Everyone can be attracted to whoever they want to be to. I've never had a consistent type. And part of that I attribute to when I was about 16, I was at some weird purity, whatever thing. And one of the biggest takeaways I had from all the years of crazy purity things I went to was I realized through someone else's marriage, because they were like speaking or whatever, that you don't have who you end up with, like who you end up marrying to, or who you end up in a relationship with, like whatever it is, you might not find them physically attractive at first, but that doesn't matter because it's who they are as a person.
Exactly.
I had this
Once
moment
you get
where
to a certain age, you give up on physical attraction.
Even more so than
it
that.
Sounds weird.
No, it's totally true. But even more so than that, I had this realization of like, when you're attracted to who they are as a person, their outer beauty just becomes more beautiful. Yes,
they're
exactly.
beautiful. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
you've seen ghastly looking people. My favorite example, like I said, Gary Busey. 3 women have married freaking Gary Busey, and one of them married him before he was rich, so you know she wasn't a gold digger. And this man looks like a literal. His teeth look like wooden fences.
He looks like a
you know
lizard,
what I mean?
like a crazy lizard.
And I don't like to say that about people, but he looks terrible. But somebody saw him and said, "That's the man I want to marry." So if somebody's marrying Gary Busey, somebody's going to want to marry you.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And like, if you're struggling, my husband and I love listening to the Reddit anti-MLM stories and like the white knight stories and all that different stuff, because we'll put it on when we're cleaning the apartment or when we're cooking. So like we listen to the Reddit things or whatever. And whenever we hear some of the white knight ones, I always think to myself, like, yes, there's some tips that people could learn from like the pickup coaches or the YouTube guys, like all this other stuff. But I'm like, don't get too far into it and thinking that's like your Bible of how to pick up women, because that's not how women function. But like,
and I speak from experience, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, like, please bathe. Please don't use Axe as your cologne if you're older than 16
or Febreze.
Or Febreze.
Febreze
like,
only goes so far.
Yeah.
Like, and that's a real
but
thing.
Like, yeah, no, it totally is.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, besides those like basic adulting, quote unquote, type of things, don't get so caught up in trying to make whatever type of impression you want, because if you're trying to make an impression, you're not being who you are, and it's not going to work out.
And that's why I got out of that whole thing, because those pickup artists out there, it's designed for a specific type of woman. And if that's not the woman that you're looking for, then you just wasted ungodly amounts of money to get the wrong person.
What an idiot. And you wasted your time as well as their time. So like,
and there's also a chance that you missed out on the right woman.
Yes.
Like all the little cliches, like in Sherlock, you know, where it's like, what is it? Molly, who's like obsessed with Sherlock and he's oblivious, you know, he doesn't realize it until like it's too late, like all that type of stuff. And I'm like, that's real all the time, because I can't tell you how many guys who I was attracted to in high school, who come college time, or I was attracted in college, and who come after college time, started trying to pursue me again. And I was like, oh, you missed your window long ago.
Yeah, you gotta do that circle back.
We're done. I'm not opening that up again. And some of it also was like, I realized like that I wasn't interested in them.
Yeah.
I always had this like innate, there's always like something in the back of my mind that I just knew when I was dating someone, or like when I say dated, I mean like I went and hung out with them like 2 or 3 times. Like it's not real dating. I didn't really quote unquote date till I was like 25. But because there was always something in the back of my mind that was just like, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
And it was just big gut feeling, and I just always trusted it, and it would always come out either immediately, or the longest I think it was about 6 months later, something would come out that I was like, that was why. And it could be as simple as like, one time it was like he went into the military and wanted to be stationed over in like Korea, and I was like, oh yeah, that would not have worked out because I don't want to live internationally.
Yeah.
So like that would have never worked out. Another one was, there was this guy who he also wanted to live internationally, but if he came back stateside, he wanted to live like in one of like the mini houses. He wanted to be like super minimalist and all this other stuff.
Like,
and I was like,
fine,
oh, like that's cool. Like I could do that temporarily, but like I don't want to do that long term personally. Like I'm not interested in doing that long term, not in the way that you're interested in doing it. And so I just listened to my gut when I just felt like something wasn't right. I think that's an area where I think a lot of women and men just don't think about. I think sometimes we get so caught up in the idea of I need to have that person. I just need to have that comfort, that it's easier just to date them in the now and worry about the future later. But I would argue that it's better to not date. Continue to socialize, please. Don't isolate yourself. But like,
like don't.
Yeah,
like I still went out with all my friends. I was the 5th wheel. I was the 7th wheel. It didn't matter. It's fine. Like you move on. But I would argue that it'd be better to wait until you find someone who you can really get along with than to just date just for the sake of dating. Because at the end of the day, you're wasting your time, you're wasting their time, and you're setting yourself up for heartache in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, because I mean, I do go out with like different women at different times, but very early on, we're able to define, okay, what is this relationship going to be? What are we looking for at this point in time? Is it going to be long term, short term? And it could be short term, but there could be the option for it to go longer. But I mean, so when it does come to an end, it's no surprise for either one of us, because we're just, this is great. We're hanging out, doing whatever, and just having fun with each other. And when it ends, we're like, okay, we're good. But I've been able to remain friends with those people, and I've gone back and I've talked to them later. And so what worked, what didn't.
Yeah.
What do I need to work on?
Fully audits a relationship when he gets out of it.
Yes, I do.
I'm like, we're going to leave on toxic terms. We're going to block each other. I'll never speak to you again. And John's like, well, let's sit down and have some coffee and figure out where this went wrong.
And you know what? Some people can be that way. Like Miguel and I, unless, like if it was a casual, like for the guys that like I went on 1 or 2 quote unquote dates with, or like, you know, they took me out on a date, like that type of thing. Like I still would remain somewhat friends with until I felt like you're not in my life at all anymore. Like I live in a different state. Like I don't need to be friends with you on social media. It's fine. Versus like, it was a little bit more serious. Him and I, like not even in a malicious way all the time. Sometimes, yes. We would just like, you know, block, unfriend, like whatever we just felt was necessary. Because for us personally, it was like, I don't need to be open to this type of interaction again, because he's the center of the feeler stuff on the Enneagram, and I'm right off to the side of it. So for us, we're so emotional with that it's easier for us just to be like, hey, one, done, we're good. And I just need to move on, than to keep ourselves exposed to that, because we're not emotionally strong enough by like the Enneagram nature to not allow ourselves to go back to something that we don't want to go back to.
Yeah.
And so especially if we know we shouldn't.
But
that's true too, talking.
But there was one girl, and I spoke about this, I think it was in episode 2, where I actually did talk to one of my exes, and she explained to me that I was like a light switch. I wasn't congruent. I was one way with her. I was one way when we were out. I was one way when I was hanging out with my friends, and I was a different way when I was at work. And when she explained that to me, I was like, wow, okay. And she's like, that's a complete turnoff because I don't know who I'm with. And it was from that point forward, I was able to become congruent, because how I talk here on the show, this is how I talk when I'm out and about. I don't change. And that took me years to get to fix. Oh my gosh.
And that's when the number 2
there's the one. There's the perfectionist.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so important for people to recognize, because I'm so impressed that you were able to figure that out, John, because I know so many guys that, whether I liked them in high school or college, or we're just friends, where it was just like, I don't know what version of you I'm getting today. And it was so infuriating, especially if like I was interested in them romantically, because it was like, are you not? Are you playing me today? Do you not? It was to the point where there's this one guy who I still don't even know if I'm right, but like I swear to the high freaking heavens that if I wore blue jeans, he was interested and would flirt with me. But if I wore black leggings, I didn't exist.
That's
because he was so
awesome.
it was
it's that superficial.
It's ridiculous. And I have no, like, that's the only thing I could attribute it to, because I was like, because normally I was really casual, because we would just hang out after school, like we were in college. And so typically we'd all go over to someone's dorm or whatever, and we just watch movies. So half the time I'd always just be like in my yoga pants, my black yoga pants, and like a sweatshirt or like whatever. But if I ever still had my school clothes on, which was always blue jeans, and then a top, he always seemed a little bit more interested in me. So my thought process behind it was, oh, maybe I look more attractive because like I'm a little bit more done up than if I was, you know, comfy because I've been doing homework or something. But it's ridiculous. I look back at that and I'm like, whether I was right or wrong is irrelevant. The fact that I got so caught up in that way of thinking is
instead of being like,
isn't okay.
I got really caught up in the whole pickup artist world to the point that I didn't know that I was actually manipulating the girls that I was trying to go out with.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until much later that I figured that out, and it was by talking to another ex that I had, and she kind of broke it down for me, and I was like, and explained to me how I made her feel, and that's when I was like, I got to get out because I'm not even aware that I was doing this.
Yeah,
that's so impressive. Like I would encourage anyone who has a healthy relationship with an ex who feels comfortable, if you could do exactly what John did and talk to them and just, be willing to take that criticism. Like, that's very impressive. And not everyone can. There's no one in my ex relationship history that I could do that with, either because I wasn't with them long enough that I feel they could speak anything valid into my life. Or it didn't end good. If they knew me before and after, like, it just didn't end appropriately to where that would even be okay.
Yeah.
But I think just being aware of how you're approaching, I think is so crucial. And to any guys, I would say, who try to pick up stuff, which I fully understand that it can definitely boost confidence. And I think there is some really good tips in there as far as like kind of demasking the idea of approaching a woman, and like it's not as intimidating. I would just encourage you guys that you might get rejected for reasons beyond comprehension, because there's sometimes where even I have customers who will talk to me and it's kind of like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, don't talk to me.
Like I don't want to talk to you.
Like, I like, well, like it's legitimate. We don't even know why we're mad sometimes, because something just in our gut would just be like, that's not okay. And we're just like turned off.
Yeah. For me, it was how I was, for me, it wasn't so much how I talked. It was actually how I was walking up to them. I just showed like an amazing amount of insecurity, but if I could get past that, I could talk to them. But
it's like jobs.
But what they were seeing and interpreting was completely different than what I thought I was projecting, and it is that first impression type thing.
Yeah,
and they're just like, ooh, no, back up. And especially for, I call them the power women. They're the corporate CEOs, the movie stars, and stuff like that. I mean, that
I've been called incredibly intimidating. I have no idea why people find me intimidating, but I've been told I'm one of the most intimidating people that people interact with. And I'm like, why? I'm stupid. Like, I'm super goofy and like whatever. But whenever I'm in a leadership role, I carry myself like a powerhouse.
Yeah.
Because the way my brain works is I'm like, I need to get stuff done.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to carry myself that way.
And that can be,
and people are intimidated by that. And
well, it could also be,
it's not something that I really,
it could also be your outgoing personality, and they don't know how to go. They don't know how to actually deal with that. Yeah. And there are certain techniques. I mean, as far as the pickup artist world is concerned, I think overall, in general, it's a very good self-help program. Beyond that, leaves the rest. Yeah, leaves the rest of it. All the tips, tricks, and this and that, and all that.
Yeah.
Open your mouth and go talk to them. Yeah, I don't have this issue.
Yeah, Ashley doesn't have that issue, but I did.
Well, and the reality is like, you're going to get rejected, but I don't care if you're like Brad Pitt. Like, you're going to get rejected. It doesn't matter. So if you get out of your head,
people who are interested in me.
Yeah.
So me, that was me. I was like, I gotta avoid the rejection.
I think that's everybody's thing. They don't want to get rejected. They don't want other people to see them get rejected.
Right.
But I found my.
Well, and I think. I was going to say, I think if you don't go into it as a win-lose situation,
exactly,
it's so much easier, because the reality is like, in today's society, like, being friends from meeting at a club is okay. It's actually one of the funniest things and coolest things ever. So like, if you meet a girl and you start talking, who knows? She may become interested in you and you're actually not interested in her, but like, give yourself the opportunity to like,
give yourself the opportunity to say no.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. I love Avatar: Airbender. You'd be surprised what random, nerdy, cringy 90s based. You're such a dork. Yeah, like, you'd be surprised like how many people out there actually genuinely love stuff. Like, people talk to me about Star Wars. I'm not nearly as big of a nerd as I would love to be, but I know lots of things. I watched majority of the live Star Wars event stuff from a couple years ago. I rode the new Star Wars Smugglers One ride. I cried in the queue. It was so freaking cool. And I got to jump to hyperspeed and I was freaking out. I was screaming. It was the coolest thing ever. I would love to talk to anyone about it.
Yeah.
But I think people, I don't know, everyone just kind of overthinks it. Even just like being friends. One of my best friends was like, I was so nervous to talk to you because I thought you were like this super cool girl and you're just a giant nerd. And I don't know if I like it. And I'm like, well, get over it because it's who I am and it's not changing.
Yeah, because I mean, that's one of my biggest tips is like when I approach somebody, and you'll hear it in the podcast. When I approach somebody, I keep the questions very innocuous, very low key, non-threatening. So these red flags aren't going out. Oh my gosh, he's trying to pick me up. Get away from me. It's not like that. I'll go up and if I saw you at the grocery store, I'll be like, do you like that cereal? What do you like about it? But I'm also going into it and I'm not thinking in the back of my head, okay, I need to get a phone number. I need to get a date. I need to do this. There is no agenda. If she doesn't like me, I can easily walk away.
Right.
And I mean, actually, I made a joke about this where I have shopping buddies. That is no joke.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like he has women that shop with him. Like,
that's so
he meets a lot of women at the supermarket. I'm one of those people.
That's
when I go
hilarious.
Into the supermarket, right? Because nobody does that. I go into the supermarket. If someone talks to me who I'm not with the supermarket, I automatically assume they're trying to steal from my cart or they're taking the last thing I want. There's no way we're going to be friends because I'm in the worst mood ever when I have to go shopping.
Yeah, because I'll go into the supermarket because I pretty much go to the same one. So everybody there knows me, including the cashiers. Okay. But I'll go in and I'll bump into them like on aisle 3. I'm done by aisle 4, but I'll walk around the entire store with them and like, hey, nice meeting you. That's all you're getting? I
definitely would never do that.
That's so
like
funny.
If my soulmate's in a fucking grocery store, well, I guess I'm gonna miss out because I'm not gonna spend extra time with you. That's
I probably now everybody at the grocery store is probably going, oh, so that's how he does
it.
Right? You just gave away your industry secret, John. Way to go!
Now everybody across the entire world is going to start. Do you like what are you doing? You doing that John thing?
I swear to God,
I'll probably burn myself.
Are you pulling a John? Are you pulling a supermarket John?
We'll call that a John. But we have been talking for a solid hour and a half.
Yeah. I looked, I was like, oh man, we've been going. Yeah. Well, is there any other questions you guys wanted to ask, like specifically about marriage that you wanted to cover today? Or we could do another episode and we could go over more stuff more specific.
We can actually do another episode.
Let's do it.
This one I could probably split into two episodes.
Like 2.5 maybe.
Yeah. 2-parter.
Cool.
Heck yeah.
Because I mean, really for me, some of the best parents I've ever met are people who have no kids. They give the best advice. So it's kind of like you get the best advice about marriage from people who are not married. So
I honestly, to a certain point, I think that's totally true. But I think once they hit like that 45, 50 year married mark, I think those people,
they know exactly
they just
what
have something.
You need to listen to them.
Yeah, I've actually,
my grandparents,
I've actually talked to people who were like 80 years old, have been married for like 40 years, and I interviewed them, and I was like, what makes this work? I mean, how do you guys get to
I swear they always say communication. And
no, they totally do.
Pretty much,
And actually,
I'm going to talk, I'm going to my grandparents this weekend. My grandpa is like 82 or 83. My grandma's like 78, and they've been married probably pushing 50 years, and she's had some very serious health issues. So, prayers, good vibes, and all that good stuff for her. It's been an interesting time, but they still treat each other like they're dating. They goof off, they bicker, but they laugh, they make fun of each other. They, they're, when my husband and I talk with them, you think we were talking to our best friends who are the same age as us.
Yeah.
Because of how they act with each other and
just,
holding hands and things like that. That's what I'm looking
for.
Absolutely. So shoot me some questions. I'd love to talk to them about it and just see, especially my grandpa, because if anyone has any questions they want to write in and stuff, I see them about once a month. This is a regular thing that I could talk to them about. But my grandpa, he has such a heart of gold. He's so freaking funny. It's hilarious. Like he has these little one-liners. It's great. But my grandma has dementia. So she does her memories, it's in and out. And he's so sweet. He's our full-time caregiver. he drives like perfect. It's hilarious. He's a still old 82-year-old Mexican guy, just, shoveled into his car. He whips around like there's no tomorrow, whatever. It's so great.
Yeah.
But there's just one thing I love that I see their relationship that encourages me and Miguel with our marriage. We can kind of end it right here, I guess, because I know we've been talking for like ever. Is they're goofy with each other. They're silly. They joke. Because they had the same type of humor that my husband and I have with each other. And so for us, his parents, they're not, and then my parents are serious. And then for us to be together, we kind of felt like there was almost something, like we were missing something because everyone around us was, not like us as a couple. And then here's my grandparents who've been married, for decades.
Yeah.
And they're just like us. And it just goes to show that, it's about what you make your marriage, because marriage is freaking awesome,
and it's by choice.
Not for everyone, and that's okay.
Yeah,
but I know. Yeah, obviously, I was about to say, like, if you choose to be married and make that commitment, and it's a healthy marriage, it's like the best fucking thing ever. So,
there you have it, guys.
Yeah.
Hear that? Marriage can be the best fucking thing ever. I think if we could find a guest, if you're listening and you're a bitter old man or woman with a shitty relationship, divorce, I'd like to hear that story too, actually. And kind of the exact opposite, of what we've been talking about.
I would love to hear that, because I would love to know what happened that Miguel and I could avoid.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because that's knowing the mistakes so that you don't make those same mistakes. They say don't drive on the wrong side of the road because you're going to get into an accident.
Right. So, yes. Well, like we talked about, like, I've only been married, like, it'll be 6 months in December. So we're very much newlywed. But like I was telling John when we were conversing about me coming on the show, as I was like, we put in the work to make sure our marriage was set up. We took premarital classes. We're taking a second set in the spring. We're in financial courses. We're educating ourselves because we're like, we recognize that most of our peers don't stay married. Yeah. And we're like, that's not an option.
I'm in, as far as my career is concerned with law enforcement, it's an extremely high divorce rate.
Oh yeah.
Because you're going to hit that PTSD situations. It's extremely stressful job at times. It can also be extremely boring. But it's
it's not a 9 to 5. You can be doing anything and everything.
I can get if I wasn't on medical, I could get a call and like right now, and I would have to cancel and go, which does happen because I am on one of those special teams.
Yeah.
But the same thing with the military. I was in the Marine Corps and I saw divorce after divorce after divorce.
Oh yeah, dude.
So it's one of the next to the Navy. It's one of the highest divorce rates there is.
Yeah.
So, and
All right. So
I'd love to talk. We could talk more about setting up for success. I think that's something that
and that's what I love about your story is that you guys were you were just doing, and with the enneagrams. That like totally.
I firmly believe that saved our marriage before we were ever even in trouble. I firmly believe that the Enneagram is like it was our lifesaver before we even needed one, because we just have such transformed as people. Like I can just see, I was like, man, if I was growing at the rate I was growing before the Enneagram, we would have ended up separated at some point. Yeah. But because of the Enneagram, we're able to view past all those things and stuff that used to be a big, stupid bicker fight every week. Not an issue anymore.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Just because that's one of the things I keep preaching is you got to make sure you're on the same page, and both me and Ashley, we almost every episode in which we take these relationship questions, we're like, you've got to set the foundation for the rest of the relationship. And you guys are setting up the foundation for really the rest of your life. And it's just beautiful. I really, and just have you here on the show and being able to reinforce that with no prompting whatsoever.
Right.
Just, I think it will greatly help our listeners.
Yeah. And I'd love to do a full entire show about Enneagrams, by the way, like a full show.
Oh, heck yes. Have anyone submit any questions about it? I'm so excited. We didn't even go over the songs. Okay. quick was blurb. We'll have to do an Enneagram episode.
Yeah.
But there's these songs that this guy wrote, who each song, all the musical artists on it, with the exception of him, he's always a vocalist. Every other artist on that song is that type. So the 1 is all type 1s. 2s is all 2s, 3s is all 3s, so on and so forth. So there's this passion in each song.
I want to have to look that
up. Me too.
Yeah.
So I don't really like music, so I want to see if this music works.
So, and each one has different things about it. So for type 1, John, he uses cleaning tools to help create certain noises and percussion sounds in it, because type 1s are so meticulous.
Yeah, that's yes, we are.
Yep. For my song, I'm a type 2. Everything was string. He didn't use any other instrument. It was all string. So the main, it's called Sleeping at Last. So what you're going to want to do is actually look it up on YouTube and watch the lyric video. Typically what happens is it draws out an emotional reaction from you. And you end up crying as you're reading the lyrics, because it just hits your soul. And it's just this really freeing feeling, which is why I recommend people doing it, even if you hate crying. But the 2 is all about, it's all strings, because we're so warm and welcoming. He's wanted it to feel like a warm blanket, he describes. For 7s, they actually use kid instruments like recorders and stuff like that to help create some of the noises, because there's such a freedom about 7s, and he tries to capture that. So the title is Sleeping at Last is the artist's name. If you go to YouTube and type in like Enneagram 7 Sleeping at Last, you'll find your lyric video. Typically it's like a black and white screen with like some sort of like typically like an image of like a silhouette of like a boy and a girl and something. Like I know mine is like 2 kids holding up a puppy to drink water. I know type 8 is like a bull like with a warrior on it and stuff like that. And it's so incredible just how he's able to capture the emotions of each type in such a way. I say time and time again with the Enneagram that they're able to articulate things that I've always felt but never knew how to articulate, which feels invasive. But if you allow it to keep going, you feel free. And then he actually has a podcast as well called Sleeping at Last. It's on Spotify and iTunes, where he dives into the psychology behind each Enneagram type. I haven't listened to all of them. They're very long episodes, but they're really good. And so in my type, for example, type 2 is because we're all about belonging. There's a special guest he has. I don't remember the guy's name, but he goes into psychology of type 2s. And the reason because Enneagram is nurture based, not nature based.
Yeah.
So the reason someone's a type 2 is at some point in their childhood, because it's all in early childhood development. So you can't project it onto children because they need to develop it themselves. At some point, I experienced a rejection of protection from someone who I valued as a guardian. It could have been my mom, my dad. It could have been an uncle, a grandparent. I don't even know the moment it happened. It could have happened when I was like literally 1 year old.
Yeah.
Right. So at some point, I experienced some sort of rejection. And from that point forward, I have tried to re-earn acceptance from anyone and everyone, because that's a core value.
Yeah.
And dive deep into my
personality. So he has, so in each one, he goes into detail, and it's so empowering. So anyone out there, I recommend, if you would like to take a test, I would recommend Your Enneagram Coach, YOUR Enneagram Coach. It's on Instagram. Beth McCord authors Becoming Us, and she has a really accurate test. It's not 100% accurate, but it's definitely a great starting off point. And if you're really close between 2 different numbers, they ask you a couple of questions at the very end to help determine, and then they tell you what the other number is. So like, we think you're a 6, but you might have been a 2 because of this. And then you get to kind of explore it. She has some really great pages on there. If you scroll down, you'll find the stuff about wings. You'll find stuff. If you're really confused, scroll down her page quite a ways and you'll find the stressors. And if you're really kind of battling between a couple of them, look at type 1 under stress, type 2 under stress, and see how they respond to stress. And that really helps solidify that I for sure was a 2 base. And then I'm still kind of figuring out my wing or not. But we'll do a whole episode. We can go over all of this and just
super, super interesting.
Isn't it amazing? I describe it as a relationship tool masquerading as a personality test.
Yeah, because we did an episode on horoscopes, and we were kind of going through those, and we're like, and yeah, that's that's pretty accurate.
I feel like they're too positive.
Then we did the Enneagram, and I was like, holy cow. Okay, this is super scary.
It's uncomfortable.
Okay, and like the weirdest part is it's from ancient Greece.
Oh,
like they were best
it's not recent. This isn't like even 100 years ago. This is like thousands of years ago. Someone developed. They don't even know who did it. There's just a bunch of documentation of it. So it's like some random group of people figured this out, and like they had
nothing else to do. I mean, there's no TV, there's no radio, there's
Netflix,
no internet.
Nope. There's just a bunch of gods to worship and people to figure out.
Yeah, man. It's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Well, Lauren, it was awesome having you on the show today.
Yes.
Guys, let us know how you feel about Lauren's 2-part episode. If you want her to come back, let her know. If you think she did a bad job, keep it to yourself.
Keep it to yourself.
Also, we don't care what you think when it comes to this particular part. But we will definitely have you back on for Enneagrams. Lauren, is there anything else you'd like to leave with our audience before we wrap this up?
There's a few things. I always have little taglines, but you know what? We'll leave it with this, which is my tagline for my blog post that I have. You know what? There's always room for coffee, but I'll add this on too. There's also always room for love. So if you think there's no hope, you're lying to yourself.
Yeah, and you can find Lauren on Instagram at the And Coffee blog.
Yes. ANDCOFFEE, B as in boy, LOG.
Yes, and you can find that in the show notes. And with that, we are out of time. Again, Ashley and I would like to thank Lauren for coming on the show to share her story and giving some insights into what has made her and Miguel's marriage work. We had a great time in talking with Lauren, and we hope to have her back on the show again so that we can learn a little bit more about Enneagrams. Please show Lauren some appreciation by following the links in the show notes or on the girlsaskguyshow.com website under any of Lauren's shows. You can also find her on Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook at And Coffee Blog. And Coffee Blog is spelled as one word, ANDCOFFEEBLOG. Be sure to subscribe to the show so you are one of the first to know when we have guests on the show. Now go out there, live life on your terms, be the star you were meant to be, and we will learn to master this thing called life together. We thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.